Travel and Things, in association with Rugged Wear, Real People, Real Clothing, Real Solutions presents In Conversation With. I am your host, David Batsoffen, and my guest today is the author of a new book. This is her second, I suppose, in a series. It's called Holding My Breath, Further Exploits of an ER Doctor, if I can remember which way to hold the book up. And my guest is Dr. Anne Biccard. Anne, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. It's lovely to see you again.
It's great to chat to you. So, further exploits. You don't have enough trouble fighting with people in the ER. You want to write yet another book about them?
I do. They keep coming to the ER, and I have to keep writing them down.
I have to say that the one bit that leapt out of the book at me was this: you keep referring to a shirking wall, and I thought I was reading a new Harry Potter, and the shirking wall was a new spell or something. But no, it seems to be a place where people go and sit and smoke and cogitate.
Yes, it is. It's not it's not the most beautiful spot, really sort of directly in the ambulance bay, but has a little patch of lawn which you can see. And now that you can't smoke as close to the hospital, we've sort of colonized the shirking wall for us to sit on, just to get a bit of sunlight and be outside, because there actually aren't any windows inside the ED itself.
When you set out to become a doctor all those years ago, why did you specifically choose ER work, or did it choose you?
No, I think it chose me. So, back then, basically everybody did their time in casualty as part of their training, and then as an intern. There wasn't really a speciality to do that you could learn emergency medicine per se.
Right.
And so, I did a little bit of GP work and worked overseas, but I kept kind of returning to the ED as my port of call, and I guess you get good at what you do every day. So it chose me, and then I chose it, and it's been good to me. Hopefully I've been good to it.
What we should have said starting out is the book, which is Holding My Breath, Further Exploits of an ER Doctor, is published by Jacana, as was your first. The one thing I found interesting is there's no acknowledgements page. Wow, that's my first port of call in a book, Anne. I always want to see who the author is thanked and why. You thanked nobody, except maybe your patients giving you the stories.
Yes, I do thank my patients for the privilege of all the stories I tell. There was an acknowledgement, I think, more for the Blue Snoopy that died while I was writing the book. So that was sort of probably predominant in my mind. I suppose people, long-term authors that actually work as their full-time job feel, that they need to thank everybody for supporting them through the difficult process of birthing a child. For me, the book is really my day condensed into a kind of a summary. So yeah, it's interesting. I didn't even think to acknowledge anyone.
Well, maybe
it's an interesting comment.
You can be aware of that, because I'm sure you've got more than enough stories to fill a whole series of these books. Watch out, J.K. Rowling.
Well, I think 3 is a good number,
Yeah. So have you saved the best for last, though? Because the one story that got to me, that made me go, I wonder if this isn't an urban legend, is the one about the python that had swallowed the child.
No, so that actually is a true story. It's not an urban legend, but I'm not sure if I'm saving the best for last, because the sort of scenarios keep unfolding. So even this past week, I just actually can't believe some of the things that I've seen. And some of them are sad, and some of them are funny, and some of them are challenging. But yeah, not all of the stories in the first or the second book occurred exactly in the timeline that I wrote the book
obviously.
in. So there were stories that maybe I see a patient today that reminded me of a patient I saw 25 years ago. So yeah, none of them are urban legends. Actually, people say, "How did you think all of this stuff up?" And I didn't actually think it up. It actually all happened. You know, with a change of gender and a change of age and a change, you know, a couple of things changed up so people don't get identified.
I remember some.
Although there is a debate in the hospital.
I was
as to who exactly is the favorite physician.
Okay.
Pardon me?
No, I was saying I was in an ER some while ago with a friend of mine, and every time a door opened, I noticed they were working on a particular patient. And there was all sorts of stuff lying everywhere. You know, there was blood all over the floor. And eventually the helicopter crew came out and they were high-fiving each other. And I said, "In this," he goes, "we've not lost one yet." And they pulled whoever it was back from the brink. And I must say, I was stunned and amazed because I thought that whoever was on the table was long gone. But, you know, a doffing of the hat to people like yourselves, to doctors like yourselves, the emergency crews that bring the patients in, because they too have to be, you know, they're right at the forefront. They get to see the patients even before you do.
That they do, and it's something we're not really. We actually had somebody who had quite a horrible incident that happened in the car park of the hospital, and everybody came running in to us to go and help. And we were a bit out of our depth. You know, we don't really do that. We don't have the equipment to pick up somebody who's been knocked over by a car in the car park. You know, we used to the paramedics bringing us the patient on a stretcher, sort of packaged, you know. So we were sort of all running around saying, "We need this, we need that, and do we have this?" And you know, sort of shouting at spectators and trying to direct traffic. And I thought, gosh, we really are privileged to have such a great EMS in South Africa that calls ahead and tells us they're bringing us a P1 and lets us get ready and get our gloves on and, you know, be alert and waiting for the patient. Makes all the difference. That call up front, we just all in our place, you know. Whereas when it's sort of sprung upon you, you might be getting a glass of water or, you know, whatever, and suddenly, you know, the ED turns from calm seas to mayhem, you know.
Chaos. My mom used to call. My mom was a nurse, and often she found herself in the casualty department at the provincial hospital in Port Elizabeth, and she didn't like what she referred to as dirty blood. She couldn't deal with patients like yourself that she hadn't been warned about. And I remember coming home after having an accident one evening, and she went, no. I'd cut my head open. I'd had an altercation with a wall, and the wall won. And she said to me, "No, go and wash your face first. I'm not touching that. It's dirty blood. I'm not interested. When your face is clean, then come back and I'll help you."
No, look, I mean, you know, that's all of the casualties are. The smell of vomit and blood, it pervades everything. If you can't tolerate those two things, then you're not going to have a happy time. That's for sure.
The other story that also made me chortle, and I suppose I shouldn't have, because the guy seems to have injured himself quite badly, was the guy who scratched himself with a knife because he was itching, and cut himself asunder with the damn thing.
And with an absolute straight face, you know, said, you know, it was really itchy, you know, and he cut sort of a swathe of his skin off. And then he was sort of second guessed me on the stitches, you know, and said, "Are you sure?" I was like, you know, if I don't have to stitch you, it's easier for me to just pluck a dressing on and send you home. This is going to take me half an hour to get this together, you know.
That's what magic
but
glue.
Yeah, you know, you steal. Well, you can glue it, but if it's bleeding, that doesn't work. So if it's bleeding, the blood washes the glue off it. It kind of doesn't stick. But also for a big area like that that's under tension, you know, gluing works well for a small thing that you can just sort of approximate. And the other thing is that you have to be able to approximate the edges of the wound without actually touching the skin that you're going to glue. Otherwise, you glue your finger to the patient, which has happened to me a few times. They'll be taking me home with them, or at least my glove.
And
just leave it in place, you know.
I remember reading your first book and being I suppose, upset because there's no closure to a lot of your stories. And I suppose for you as an ER doctor, it's exactly the same. And that's the manner in which you write. Now, my wife is a doctor, not an ER doctor, but she loves the way you write because it reminds her of her time when she was a houseman and that type of thing. And she had to deal with what you had to deal with or have to deal with on a daily basis. And she says it was exactly the same for her. There is no closure. You see a patient, they get taken away, and you never know what's happened to them. And you write in a similar vein. So your reader is left with exactly the same feeling as you had when you saw the patient. And it's disconcerting, but it's what it is.
It is, the nice thing about working in a hospital where you are a community and you know the doctors that work with you is that you catch up with them in the tea room or the corridor, and you can kind of revisit. I mean, I had a long conversation with the doctor actually this weekend, who, long story short, didn't want to see the patient and then said, I believe that the patient has a horse, and so now he's not a horsey person, And so when I saw him in the corridor, I was like, horse hater, under my breath. And then, we sort of then connected, and he told me what had happened to the patient. And, so the nice thing is that you do get sometimes to hear what happened next, especially if you work in one unit, so, and the person well enough, or even to send them a text in the evening and say, hey, what happened there? Were you successful? So, but it is very much working in the ED is not it's not a long novel. It's a short story, I guess.
And it's also not what you see on television, because I know, sitting next to my wife watching medical programs on television with her screaming at the screen, A, that doesn't exist, and B, a simple blood test would have resolved the whole issue. You didn't have to cut the patient open to find out what was wrong with them.
Yeah, I mean, that I haven't really watched any of those series, but I mean, some of my friends really love like Grey's Anatomy and things like that. For me, it's too much of the same. And interestingly, quite a lot of the people I work with that don't work in the ED absolutely gobbled the books up and loved them. People like our unit manager who deals with me all day, every day. It's just like, if I hear one more word out of you, I think I'll shoot myself, So she's like, thanks for the book. I was like, did you read it? She's like, not really. I was like, okay. I'm quite sure she doesn't want to hear about her life again in a book, So yeah. I mean, it is very compelling when you're there, and it's when you're away, then you're away, and you see the mayhem unfolding, and you think, thank goodness I'm not there. When you get past the baton, you kind of have to take it. Yeah.
You mentioned obviously people that you work with, or you allude to them, you give them names, you don't mention the hospital you work at, you don't mention the doctors by name. Do they recognize themselves in your book? And have they contacted you and go, oh, so that's what you think of me?
So I very seldom say anything negative. And interestingly enough, I had an interaction in the tea room, and I said something that was not very complimentary. And one of the other doctors said, I've never in 25 years heard you speak badly about another doctor. And it's not a pretense. I actually genuinely like the people I work with. And they pretty much all know who they are, except there's a hot debate about who the favorite physician is. The blue-eyed surgeon. Everyone's like, who's the blue-eyed surgeon? I was like, well, think of the surgeons who work here. Which one of them has blue eyes? And then they all guess. And I'm like, haven't you ever looked at the person? You work with them. Don't you know what color their eyes are? But the favorite physician is not described in terms of physicality. Yeah. So there's a great debate about who the favorite physician is. He knows who he is.
Oh, okay.
But so it's not publicly acknowledged.
All right. So at the end of book 3, might there be an annex which says the blue-eyed surgeon is, the favorite physician is?
You know what? It might be in what you suggested at the beginning, an acknowledgement of the people who've taught me so much and have been so fantastic to work with. you know. Maybe I'll just acknowledge them. And also, some of them are mixed up. So, you know, I'll give the blue-eyed surgeon a job that a different surgeon has played in my role, just because people know the blue-eyed surgeon, you know. So he was a bit like, I don't remember this patient. I was like, yeah, because that wasn't you. I mean, it's, you know, in a good light. It's not like he killed the person in cold blood, but, you know, I thought instead of introducing yet another new character, let's stick with who we know, you know.
Does Prof
personally, I find that
Prof
no, he doesn't.
Any of the characters?
No, he doesn't. He was a little bit before my time. He did teach me, but wasn't a person that, interestingly enough, the person I worked in partnership with for like 20 years also doesn't feature. And everybody said, where's he in the book? And I was like, I don't know, you know. He just didn't ever do anything that I felt I needed to write down, you know, not, you know, in a negative way. He just never, he just worked, you know, he just got on and saw the patients and did his job, and, you know, so he also doesn't feature,
The book is called, I always get, Holding My Breath, Further Exploits of an ER Doctor. It's published by Jacana. It's written by Dr. Anne Biccard. Anne, thank you so very much for joining me once again. It's always a pleasure to chat to you. So you now can have some time off with your partner, with your horses, and with the Snoopies, and load shedding like the rest of us.
That's absolutely it. And I hope they didn't disturb our interview by barking in the background.
Not at all. And if they had, I would have just mentioned them, and then people would have known who they are. So once again, the book, Holding My Breath, Further Exploits of an ER Doctor, published by Jacana. Where is it available? Can you get it online? Can you get it in bookstores?
Yeah, all the bookstores, online. I think it's pretty much everywhere.
Great stuff. And thank you so very much. I'm looking forward to the third one, close off the trilogy, and to see how much of how many of the people I can identify from book 1 and 2 in book 3.
Thank you for the chat. Lovely to see you again.
Cheers for now. My guest today has been Dr. Anne Biccard. The book is called Holding My Breath, Further Exploits of an ER Doctor, published by Jacana. My name is David Batsoff, and thanks for joining me.